Welcome back to breakfast. I'm Naga Monchetti here in Westminster, just coming up to 7:30. Thanks very much for joining us. So what are we talking about today? Well, the government is going to try to offer MPs another chance to approve the Prime Minister's agreement, the Brexit deal today. Only though, if the Commons Speaker, John Bercow, allows the vote to take place. So ministers also expect to start the parliamentary process for leaving the EU today, insisting they will leave by the deadline of October 31st. Despite being forced over the weekend, of course, to request an extension from EU leaders. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by Rishi Sunak, MP for the Conservatives and Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Good morning.
Good morning, Naga.
Good morning to you. Now, you obviously did not vote for the Let to Win amendment.
I didn't. This kind of meaningless vote we had on Saturday instead of a meaningful vote. Hopefully we can correct that today. I think what we want to see MPs being able to respect the result of the referendum, as they say they want to do, leave with a good deal at the end of October. We now have that good deal. We don't want more delays and Labour's amendments on second referendum to frustrate or cancel Brexit. I don't think are helpful. I don't want Parliament's letter to lead to another delay. I want us to get out of the EU by the end of October with a good deal. We can do that, and I hope today MPs will be able to get behind Boris Johnson's new deal and make sure that that happens.
How many pages is the withdrawal agreement?
Well, the withdrawal agreement will be published in its entirety before second reading. Obviously, it will be introduced today, and the agreement itself has already been published. The one that we're considering, there are specific changes to the backstop. That's the key change, and the political declaration. Those are the new things that just got published last week.
How many pages is it?
Well, it will be published later in
Do you
advance. It will be published in advance until it's actually been published.
Do you know why I'm asking you this? The reason I'm asking you this is it's thought it's around 100 pages. Now, you have 10 days and you're expecting MPs to go through this forensically, as the public would expect, having elected these MPs, but you're not giving them enough time to do so.
Well, remember, what they're considering is a withdrawal agreement that has already been published and has been published for a very long time. The deal that we've renegotiated has some specific changes. The rest of it, we've been considering this whole process for 3 years. I don't think there's been any shortage of time, debate and scrutiny around this whole process. The withdrawal agreement, as I said, it's already been published when we last had the deal. It's just the changes that are new now, and that's the things that we've been discussing over the last few days.
And Boris Johnson has put forward this deal saying it's the best deal, it's better than Theresa May's 3 attempts, which were shouted down, voted down. If these changes are so significant, they need to be debated. They need to be scrutinised. They must be significant if Boris Johnson is saying this is so much of a better deal.
And the changes have been published, and they were published last week as soon as they were negotiated with the EU. And they're quite specific changes, and we've already had the debate on Saturday around them. We've had plenty of debate more generally about them, and Parliament will get a chance to sit late, to sit at the weekends if need be, to get this done. But I think what people want now, Naga, look, we've had this process going on for 3 years. People want it done. They don't want more delay. They want it over and done with. This is a good deal. Parliament has shown in the past its willingness to move quickly. I think that's what people would expect us to do, and I think we can do our job well and properly. But first, we've got to have this straight up or down vote on the deal and make sure we can end this uncertainty.
So you say the details have been published. This weekend the pound has slipped because of what's been happening around this deal. There has been no official economic assessment by Sajid Javid. He's not presented that. Why?
Well, the Bank of England governor just said last week at the IMF meeting that voting for this deal would be a positive step. It would be good news for the UK economy. It would end uncertainty. But what we're talking about when you talk about economic assessments
Can I just pick you up?
About the future relationship. And that obviously is something that needs to be negotiated. Parliament will have its say on that process. Prime Minister is committed to that. And as that process unfolds, of course, there would be assessments done. But I say this, right, this is about restoring trust in politics, ending the division of the last 3 years. No impact assessment or spreadsheets can convey the value of doing that if we can support this deal this week.
You quoted Mark Carney, the Bank of England governor. Mark Carney also said, and I quote, "The deal might not boost the economy to the same extent as the deal put forward by Theresa May."
He's talking about the future relationship, which, as I said, this is about leaving the EU. It's about withdrawal. The separate future relationship is something that needs to be negotiated. That will happen after we leave. And of course, as that process unfolds, there would be assessments that are made at that time, and they would be shared with Parliament in the normal way. But you can't do that now because those conversations haven't happened. The key thing now is Do we want to leave the European Union at the end of October? This deal allows us to do that, and that's the uncertainty that we would like to end and move on.
Any business would not publish a plan to change fundamentally its relationships without showing the economic assessment, the economic impact. How can you conscientiously ask people to vote, ask MPs to vote on something they don't know the economic impact of?
Well, I think we're confusing two things. One is about leaving the EU, and the second thing is about conversations about our future relationship. And in fact, it was the EU themselves who said they wanted to separate those two conversations. They said you have to talk about leaving first. That's what they insisted on with Theresa May. And then they said only after you've left can we then talk about the future relationship. So those were actually the EU's rules, not ours. So this is about leaving. So first of all, we have to leave. That's what we want to do by the end of October. That's what this withdrawal agreement, this treaty allows us to do. And then after that, we can negotiate in full a deep and comprehensive economic partnership. That's what we've committed to. That's what the political declaration states in the documents that have been published. But again, we can't have that conversation until we've left, and we need to leave, and that's what this vote this week is about.
OK, let me simplify it then. Amber Rudd, former Home Secretary, left the Cabinet, says our government's own assessments are that this will hurt the economy by 4 to 6% a year. Is she right?
I think Amber Rudd was talking about, in those numbers, about leaving without a deal. What this withdrawal does is mean that we're not leaving without a deal. It means we have an
No, she wasn't. She was talking on the Sophie Ridge show on Sky. She wasn't talking about that.
Well, I don't know how Amber, with all the greatest respect, knows exactly what the future relationship will be, because it hasn't been negotiated yet. And again, we're trying to separate two things. We have to leave the European Union. Once we've left, we can have a detailed conversation about the nature of our future economic partnership. Those are the EU's rules. They wanted to have those two negotiations to be separate. They wanted to do one first. This is stage one. Let's leave first. And after we've left, we have a transition period to negotiate that future relationship. And there's a statement of intent about that in the documents. And it states that we want a close economic partnership.
And all of this depends on John Bercow, the Speaker, actually allowing a meaningful vote. And the mood music seems to suggest that he won't be doing that.
Well, look, the Speaker has always said that he would allow Parliament, the House, to find a way to express an opinion on something. I think it's pretty clear that Parliament wants to express an opinion on this incredibly important matter. I think the country, our European partners, my constituents, everyone else wants this uncertainty to end. They want a straight up or down vote, and I think it would be slightly odd if everyone looking at us today thinks, well, why can't we have that straight up or down vote? And indeed, Europe themselves are looking for us to have, as the French presidency said yesterday, a substantive vote on this issue.
Rishi Sunak, thank you very much for talking to me. Plenty more coming up. We're going to be speaking to lots of people, getting lots of opinions about what's going to be happening this week. First, though, let's go back to Dan, find out what else is happening